It was the most deliberate silence I had ever chosen, and perhaps the cruelest. I stood alone in my office on the third floor of our Vancouver home, looking out past the Douglas firs toward the gray waters of English Bay. The rain had stopped an hour ago, leaving everything wet and gleaming under the October sun. My hands were steady as I held the glass of scotch I hadn't touched. Behind me, on the desk, lay a folder containing documents I wished I had never seen. The wedding was in 4 days. My son Graham was marrying a woman named Sienna Park, 29 years old, marketing executive, daughter of a real estate developer who owned half of Richmond. Beautiful in that sharp, polished way that made you feel like you were being assessed rather than seen. She had entered our lives 2 years ago, and from the beginning, something in her eyes reminded me of winter, glittering, bright, and utterly cold. But Graham was happy. At least, he said he was. And my wife, Eleanor, after 42 years of marriage, had taught me that sometimes love means letting your children make their own choices, even when you can see the cliff ahead. The wedding was being held at the Fairmont Hotel, Vancouver. Sienna had insisted on the ballroom overlooking the harbor. 280 guests, a budget that had started at $75,000 and climbed steadily until it sat at $160,000. I had offered to pay $50,000, a generous amount for a wedding in my view. Sienna had responded by sending Eleanor an email listing everything that would need to be cut at that budget level. No flowers, no band, no premium bar, no designer cake. The implication was clear. Either we funded her vision, or we humiliated our son in front of Vancouver society. Eleanor had cried quietly that night, not because of the money, but because of the manipulation. She recognized it for what it was. But she had looked at me with those soft brown eyes that still made me feel like the luckiest man in Canada and said, "Let's just give them the wedding, Thomas. It's only money. Maybe once they're married, things will get better." I had wanted to believe her, but I had learned over 67 years that hope and wisdom are not the same thing. The trouble had started small. Comments from Sienna about Eleanor's clothing choices. "Oh, that's such a sweet outfit. Very retro." Suggestions that Eleanor might want to update her look before the wedding photos. Pointed questions about whether Eleanor had always been so quiet or if it was just age catching up with her. Each one delivered with a smile, in front of others, so that objecting would make you seem sensitive or petty. Graham had laughed them off. "She's just joking, Dad. You know how Sienna is very direct. It's not personal." But it was personal. I had watched Eleanor's shoulders curl inward with each comment, watched the light in her eyes dim slightly every time Sienna walked into a room. My wife, who had raised 2 children, who had taught literature at UBC for 30 years, who had survived breast cancer 3 years ago, with a grace that humbled everyone who knew her. This woman was being made to feel small in her own son's life. Still, I had said nothing. I had followed Eleanor's lead, swallowed my anger, written the checks, and told myself it would pass. Then came last Tuesday. Graham had asked me to lunch at his office downtown. He worked in finance, something to do with venture capital that I had never fully understood. He seemed nervous when I arrived, fidgeting with his phone, ordering wine at noon. We made small talk about the wedding, about the Canucks' disappointing start to the season, about nothing that mattered. Then, just as we were finishing, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope. "Dad, I need you to hold on to something for me," he said, his voice low. "Just until after the honeymoon. Don't open it, don't tell Mom. Just keep it safe." I took the envelope. It was thick, filled with papers. "What is this?" "Nothing important. Just some documents from work. I don't want them sitting in my apartment while we're gone." His eyes wouldn't meet mine. "You know how it is." I did not know how it was. In 40 years of legal practice before I retired, I had learned that when someone says don't look at documents they're asking you to hold, those documents are exactly what you should look at. I waited until I got home. Eleanor was at her book club. I sat in my office and opened the envelope. Inside were copies of my will and Eleanor's will, but not the versions we had signed with our lawyer 8 months ago. These were altered, forged. In the forgeries, the family home worth $3 million in Vancouver's inflated market would pass directly to Graham upon my death, bypassing Eleanor entirely. Her share of our investments had been reduced from 50% to 20%. The documents bore what looked like my signature and Eleanor's, but I knew immediately they were fake. Eleanor's signature had a specific curl to the E that was missing. Mine had a pressure point on the downstroke of the T that wasn't there. Someone had gone to considerable effort to create these. The notary stamps looked legitimate. The paper stock was correct. If Eleanor and I had died together in a car accident, say these documents might have gone unchallenged until it was too late. I sat in that office for 3 hours, rain beginning again outside, understanding fully what I was looking at. My son and his fiancée were planning to defraud my wife of her inheritance. They were planning for my death. They had made it concrete, put it on paper, prepared for it, and Graham had handed it to me, asked me to keep it safe. I did not confront him. Not then. Some part of me still hoped there was an explanation, though I could not imagine what it would be. I called our lawyer, Judith Chen, who had known our family for 20 years. She confirmed what I already knew: the documents were fraudulent, and if filed would constitute a criminal act. "What do you want to do, Thomas?" she asked me. "I need to think," I told her, but I already knew. There is a difference between a father's love and a father's duty. I loved my son, but my duty was to Eleanor. It had been since the day I met her at a university lecture in 1982, when she had challenged the professor's interpretation of Margaret Atwood, and I had fallen in love with her courage. The question was not what to do. The question was when and how. The wedding gave me the answer. I did not tell Eleanor about the documents. Not yet. She was already anxious about the wedding, already feeling unwelcome in Sienna's carefully curated vision of the day. She had confided in me 2 nights ago that Sienna had suggested Eleanor might want to sit in the second tier of family seating, farther from the front, less visible in photos because Sienna's grandmother would be in the front row and it would look more balanced. I had felt something cold settle in my chest when Eleanor told me that. She had said it like it was a reasonable request, like she was the problem for feeling hurt. "Where will I be sitting?" I had asked. "Front row, of course," Eleanor said. "You're the father of the groom." Sienna was very specific about that, so I would be honored, displayed, and my wife would be hidden away, erased. That was when the plan formed. The wedding was on Saturday afternoon. I spent Friday evening at the Fairmont, ostensibly checking on last-minute details. I had volunteered to oversee the setup. Graham and Sienna were busy with the rehearsal dinner, and the hotel staff knew me, respected me. I had been a lawyer in this city for 4 decades. Doors opened. I walked through the ballroom, noting the placement of chairs. The front row on the groom's side had 6 seats, 3 for my family, 3 for Eleanor's sister and her family. The place cards were already set. Thomas Reed, Graham's brother Michael and his wife, Eleanor's sister Patricia. Then, second row, pushed back, Eleanor Reed, Patricia's husband, their teenage children. The bride's side had the place of honor in the center front. Sienna's grandmother, her parents, her maid of honor. I stood there for a long time, looking at those place cards. The rain drummed against the ballroom windows. Across the harbor, the lights of North Vancouver glittered through the mist. Then I made my adjustments. It was simple, really. The place cards were elegant cream cardstock with calligraphy. I had come prepared with blank cards in the same stock, the same calligrapher's work I had paid her $500 for the rush job, and her silence. I removed Eleanor's card from the second row. I removed Sienna's grandmother's card from the bride's front row center, and I switched them. Eleanor would sit front row center on the bride's side, the position of highest honor. Sienna's grandmother would sit in the second row, groom's side, pushed back and less visible. But that was not all. I had learned something else during my inspection of the venue. Sienna had arranged a special chair for her grandmother, an ornate, high-backed chair different from the standard hotel chairs, something she had rented specifically because her grandmother had back problems. It was positioned in that center front spot, impossible to miss. I had also learned, through a quiet conversation with one of Sienna's bridesmaids, who I had encountered in the hotel bar, that Sienna had planned a special surprise for Eleanor. The bridesmaid had been 3 drinks in and eager to talk. "It's so funny," she had said, giggling. Sienna put something on Eleanor's chair, like a prank. I don't know exactly what, but she said Eleanor would be stuck watching the ceremony. She kept laughing about it. Stuck. I knew what that meant. I had spent enough time in courtrooms to recognize premeditation when I heard it. So I went looking, and I found it. Eleanor's original second-row chair had a thin, nearly invisible layer of industrial adhesive on the seat, the kind that activates with body heat and pressure, the kind used in manufacturing. Someone had applied it carefully, probably that afternoon. It would not be immediately visible, but once Eleanor sat down, her dress would bond to the chair. She would be trapped, humiliated when she tried to stand. I stared at that chair for a long time. Rain continued outside. The ballroom was empty except for me and the ghost of what Sienna had planned. Then I made my second adjustment. I took Eleanor's name card from where I had placed it on the bride's side and moved it to the groom's side front row, my seat beside her. I took my card and moved it one seat over. Then I took Sienna's grandmother's card from the second row and placed it on the chair with the adhesive. The special high-backed chair for grandmother, the position of honor that would go to Eleanor. And the grandmother would sit in the trap meant for my wife. I left the ballroom at midnight. The hotel was quiet. I went home, climbed into bed beside Eleanor, and held her while she slept. Saturday arrived with rare October sunshine. Eleanor was nervous, fussing with her dress, a beautiful navy blue outfit she had bought months ago, before Sienna's comments had made her second-guess everything. She looked elegant, distinguished, exactly like the Professor Emerita she was. "You look beautiful," I told her. "I feel old," she said quietly. "You look like yourself," I said. "That's all you ever need to be." We arrived at the Fairmont at 2:30. The ceremony was at 3. The ballroom was transformed, flowers everywhere, hundreds of candles, the harbor view spectacular behind the altar where Graham and Sienna would stand. Guests were beginning to file in, murmuring appreciation. Sienna was in the bridal suite. I caught a glimpse of her through the open door, white dress, hair swept up, makeup flawless. She saw me and smiled, a smile that did not reach her eyes. Graham found me near the entrance. He looked happy, genuinely happy, in his tuxedo. For a moment I felt the weight of what I was about to do. This was his wedding day. These would be memories he carried forever. But then I thought of Eleanor's face when she described being moved to the second row. I thought of the adhesive on that chair. I thought of the forged will in my office safe. And I knew that some memories need to be sharp enough to teach. "Dad," Graham said, embracing me. "Thank you for everything. I know the budget got out of hand. I know Sienna can be particular. But this means everything to me." "I know it does," I said. "I hope you'll remember that." He gave me an odd look, but was pulled away by his best man before he could ask what I meant. Eleanor and I made our way to our seats. She hesitated when she saw the place cards, her name in the front row, my name beside her. "Thomas, this must be a mistake," she whispered. "I'm supposed to be in the back." "There's no mistake," I said. "This is where you belong." She looked at me, questions in her eyes, but the music was starting. We sat. The chair beneath her was the special high-backed one, comfortable and dignified. I saw her relax slightly, saw some of the tension leave her shoulders. Across the aisle, in the second row of the groom's side, Sienna's grandmother was being helped to her seat by an usher. She was 92, elegant in lavender, moving slowly with her cane. She sat carefully on the chair that had been Eleanor's. The processional began. The bridesmaids came down the aisle in their silver dresses. Then Graham took his place at the altar, looking toward the doors where his bride would appear. The music swelled. Everyone stood. Sienna appeared at the entrance on her father's arm, backlit by the October sun streaming through the hotel windows. She looked like a photograph, like a dream of a bride. She began her walk down the aisle. I watched her eyes scan the front row, looking for her grandmother in the place of honor. I saw the moment she registered that her grandmother was not there, that an older woman in navy blue sat in that position instead. Saw her eyes narrow slightly, the first crack in her perfect composure. But she kept walking. What else could she do? 280 guests were watching. The photographer was filming. Her father was beside her, beaming. She reached the altar, took Graham's hands. The officiant began the ceremony. I did not pay attention to the words. I was watching Sienna's grandmother. She had been sitting for perhaps 5 minutes now. I saw her shift slightly, trying to adjust her position. Saw her frown, try to shift again. The ceremony continued. Love, honor, cherish. The standard vows. Sienna's voice was steady, but I saw her glance toward her grandmother twice. She knew something was wrong. Then came the moment when the officiant said, "Please be seated." Everyone sat, except Sienna's grandmother, who did not move. At first, People assumed she simply had not heard. She was 92, after all. But then she tried to stand, and there was a sound, a tearing sound, fabric straining against adhesive. She froze, tried again. The sound was louder this time. A ripple went through the guests, people turning to look. Sienna's face going white, Graham looking confused, turning from his bride toward the commotion. The grandmother was stuck to the chair. For a moment, everything stopped. The officiant paused mid-sentence. 280 people held their breath. And in that silence, Sienna's grandmother said, in a voice that carried through the room, "What on earth is on this chair?" An usher rushed forward, tried to help her stand. The fabric of her lavender dress was bonded to the seat. When they finally managed to pull her free, there was an audible ripping sound, and a piece of fabric remained stuck to the chair. The grandmother stood there, shocked and confused, a visible patch of adhesive residue on the back of her dress. Murmurs spread through the crowd. People were standing now, trying to see what happened, talking, the carefully orchestrated ceremony descending into chaos. I looked at Sienna. She was staring at the chair, at her grandmother, her face a mask of horror. She knew exactly what had happened, because she had planned it. But it had caught the wrong person. Her eyes found mine. And in that moment, she understood. I held her gaze, my face calm, and gave her the smallest nod. The ceremony did not recover. They tried. The officiant pressed forward. The grandmother was helped to another seat. The crowd eventually settled. But the spell was broken. The perfect wedding had a crack running through it. Sienna's voice shook when she said, "I do." The kiss was brief. The recessional was rushed. At the reception, people talked about nothing else. The incident with the grandmother, the mysterious adhesive, how awful it was. Sienna's mother was furious, demanding to know what had happened, who was responsible. The hotel manager was brought in, apologetic and confused. I sat with Eleanor at our table, watching. She was troubled. "Thomas, that was meant for me, wasn't it?" she asked quietly. "My original seat. Someone did that deliberately." "Yes," I said. There was no point in lying. Who would do such a thing? I looked across the room at Sienna, holding court in her white dress, still beautiful, still composed on the surface, but with something broken in her eyes. "I think you know," I said. Eleanor was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What did you do?" "I switched the place cards. I made sure you were protected, and I made sure the person responsible for the cruelty experienced it herself. She'll know it was you. I'm counting on it." The reception continued. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. Graham's best man told funny stories. Sienna's maid of honor praised her beauty and grace. I was not asked to speak another of Sienna's subtle cuts. The father of the groom, excluded from toasts, and I was grateful for it. As dessert was being served, Graham approached our table. His face was tight with anger. "Dad, can I talk to you? Outside?" We went to the terrace overlooking the harbor. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange. It was cold, but I did not mind. "Sienna says you switched the place cards," Graham said without preamble. "She says you deliberately sabotaged her grandmother's seat." "I switched the place cards," I confirmed. "But I did not sabotage anything. I simply ensured your grandmother-in-law sat in the seat that was originally designated for your mother." "That's insane. Why would Mom's seat have adhesive on it?" "That," I said carefully, "is an excellent question. You should ask your wife." Graham stared at me. I saw the war in his face, the desire to defend Sienna, the creeping doubt. "You're saying Sienna put glue on a chair meant for Mom? That's ridiculous. Why would she do that?" "For the same reason she moved your mother to the back row. For the same reason she has spent 2 years making small, cruel comments designed to diminish Eleanor in your eyes and everyone else's. Because she wants your mother erased from your life." "That's not true. Sienna likes Mom." "Sienna tolerates your mother as an obstacle to be managed," I said. "And I have enabled it by staying silent, by writing checks, by pretending that cruelty delivered with a smile is somehow less cruel." Graham's face was red now. "You humiliated her grandmother. You ruined our wedding." "Your wedding was designed to humiliate your mother," I said quietly. "I simply redirected the humiliation to its source." He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped, because he could not deny it. He had seen the place cards, seen where Eleanor was supposed to sit. He had said nothing, done nothing. "There's something else you should know," I said. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a copy of the forged will. You gave this to me on Tuesday. Asked me not to look. I looked. I handed it to him. Watched his face as he opened it, as he read. Watched the color drain from his cheeks. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "From you. In an envelope you asked me to hold until after your honeymoon. I didn't. I don't know what this is. It's a forged will, designed to defraud your mother of her inheritance upon my death. The signatures are fake. The documents are fraudulent. And the plan was for me to hold them, unknowing, so that when the time came, they could be filed, and your mother would lose everything." "I didn't know," Graham said. His voice was shaking. "Dad, I swear to God, I didn't know what was in that envelope. Sienna gave it to me, told me it was insurance paperwork that she needed, kept safe. I never looked inside." I believed him. I could see it in his face. The shock was genuine. He had been used, manipulated, but that did not absolve him. "You have been letting your wife mistreat your mother for 2 years, I said. "You have laughed off cruelty, dismissed concerns, chosen the path of least resistance because it was easier than confrontation. And now you discover she was planning something far worse. And you tell me you didn't know. What do you want me to do?" he asked, and he sounded young, lost. "I want you to decide what kind of man you are," I said. "The kind who protects his wife, or the kind who protects a woman who would glue his mother to a chair at his wedding?" I left him there on the terrace and went back inside. Eleanor was dancing. One of her colleagues from UBC had asked her, and she was laughing, genuinely laughing for the first time all day. I watched her, and felt the tightness in my chest ease slightly. Sienna found me near the bar. She was alone, her bridesmaids busy on the dance floor. "You think you're very clever," she said quietly. Her voice was ice. "I think I am adequately prepared," I replied. "Graham will forgive me. He loves me. Perhaps he does. But you have shown me what you are willing to do to the people I love, and I will not forget." "You'll never see your grandchildren," she said, a threat delivered with a smile. "I'll make sure of that. I do not negotiate with people who forge legal documents and assault elderly women with adhesive," I said. "Whatever relationship exists between us ends today. If Graham chooses you over his family, that is his choice. But he will make it knowing exactly who you are." She looked at me with pure hatred. Then she turned and walked away, her white dress trailing behind her like a flag of surrender that would never be lowered. The reception ended at midnight. Eleanor and I drove home in silence. The rain had returned, washing the streets, making everything clean again. When we got home, she made tea and we sat in the living room, the fire crackling, neither of us tired despite the long day. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. The forged will, the adhesive on the chair, the switched place cards, all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You could have told me," she finally said. "Before today, I could have. But I wanted you to enjoy the ceremony, or at least not spend it in dread. And I wanted Sienna to understand that actions have consequences. What happens now? Now we wait. Graham has a choice to make, and we prepare for whichever choice he makes." He called 3 days later, asked if he could come over, alone. Eleanor made coffee, and I waited in my office, giving them privacy. When Eleanor came to get me, her eyes were red. Graham sat in our living room, looking smaller than I remembered. He had brought the envelope with him, the forged documents. "Sienna admitted it," he said without preamble. "She said it was insurance, in case you tried to cut me out of the will because you didn't approve of her. She said the adhesive was just a prank, meant to embarrass Mom a little, make her less perfect in everyone's eyes," she said. He stopped, his voice breaking. "She said she did it all because she loves me, because she was protecting our future." "And what do you say?" I asked. "I say I married someone I don't know." He looked at his mother. "Mom, I am so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have seen what was happening. I chose comfort over courage. And you paid the price." Eleanor went to him, held him while he cried. I sat and watched, feeling the weight of 67 years, feeling every hard decision I had ever made. When Graham had composed himself, he said, "I'm filing for an annulment. My lawyer says we have grounds fraud in the inducement. The forged will is evidence of character misrepresentation. It won't be pleasant, but I can't be married to someone who would do this." "That is your choice to make," I said. "But make it because it is right. Not because you think it will repair your relationship with us. I know, he said, but I also know that I want to be the kind of man you are, the kind who protects the people he loves, even when it costs him everything. We talked long into that night, about trust, about forgiveness, about the hard work of becoming someone worthy of the love given to us. I showed him the original wills, the real documents, and we went together to the lawyer the next day to ensure they were properly secured. The annulment took 6 months. Sienna fought it viciously, but the forged documents made her position untenable. Her father tried to threaten legal action against me, but Judith Chen shut that down with a single letter outlining the criminal charges that could be filed. In the end, Sienna accepted a settlement and left Vancouver. Last I heard, she was in Toronto, working for a tech company, engaged to someone else. I do not think about her often. Graham moved back home for a while, rebuilding his relationship with his mother, with me, with himself. He went to therapy. He dated cautiously. 2 years later, he met a woman named Rachel, a teacher from Burnaby who made him laugh and treated Eleanor with genuine warmth. They married in a small ceremony on Vancouver Island, 30 people, no place cards, no drama, just love. I think about that October day sometimes, about the choice I made, the silence I chose, the coldness I employed. I wonder if I was right, if there was a better way, a kinder way. But then I remember Eleanor's face when she sat in that front row chair, when she realized she was not being hidden away. I remember her dancing, laughing, free, and I know that protecting the people we love is not always gentle. Sometimes it requires us to be cold, to be calculating, to meet cruelty with consequences. The lesson I learned, the one I hope others might carry with them, is this. Silence in the face of cruelty is not peace, it is permission. When someone shows you through their actions that they have contempt for the people you love, believe them. Do not make excuses. Do not hope they will change. Protect what is precious to you with the same determination they show in trying to destroy it. And remember that love, true love, does not ask you to diminish yourself or others. It does not glue you to chairs, forge documents, or push you to the back row. Real love, the kind worth protecting, lifts you up, honors you, places you in the front row of life, and keeps you there. That is the kind of love Eleanor and I built over 44 years now. That is the kind of love I fought for that October day. And that is the kind of love I would fight for again, with the same cold determination, the same quiet choices, the same willingness to face the consequences. Because some things, some people are worth every hard decision, every difficult conversation, every moment of coldness required to keep them safe. Eleanor is beside me now as I write this, reading on the sofa, her feet tucked under her, gray hair catching the lamplight. She looks up, feels me watching, and smiles. "What are you thinking about?" she asks. "That I would do it all again," I say. She knows what I mean. She always does. "I know," she says. "So would I." Outside, the Vancouver rain falls soft and constant, washing the world clean, the way truth always does, eventually. And inside, we are warm, we are safe, and we are together. That is all that matters. That is everything.